everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Start a New Day. Let's talk about mental health insights for Millennials and Gen Z. This is the latest episode of INQlusive, the Inquirer webinar series produced by the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Inquirer Super, Scout, and Inquirer.net in partnership with Globe Telecom. I'm Pam Pastor, Inquirer Super and 2BU editor. Since 2012, Globe has been a staunch advocate of mental health, and Globe has partnered with the Philippine Daily Inquirer in creating a safe space for Filipinos to open up about mental health. This webinar is just one part of a campaign that focuses on making sure people feel heard and supported and find hope when they most need it. 2020 has been an incredibly challenging time for everyone. We're still in the midst of a pandemic. The world as we know it has completely changed. We continue to face uncertainty, and bad news comes every single day. It's no surprise that more and more people have been grappling with depression and anxiety. There's no better time than now to really understand and embrace the importance of taking care of yourself mentally as we navigate this new normal. Globe and Inquirer want to be here for you, and we are. We will continue to come out with content that will empower you with the knowledge and inspiration you need in staying mentally healthy. Since 2012, Globe has partnered with the Natasha Goldborn Foundation, now known as NGF Mind Strong, in providing mental health support through Hopeline 2919, a 24/7 hotline that anyone can call in times of need. Globe, through its subsidiary 917 Ventures, also has its own Consulta MD, a 24/7 telehealth hotline that also provides mental health support through licensed Filipino doctors with a growing need for mental health support. Globe likewise recently partnered with UP Diliman PsychServe, which is composed of licensed psychologists, psychosocial support specialists trained to give psychological first aid, counseling, and psychotherapy through teleconsultation as well. We're flashing the numbers on the screen, but you will see these numbers in the comment section below. Globe also created Hope Bank, an online community where members can share messages of hope and inspiration. We'll be sharing a video of Hope Bank with you. Today, this Facebook community continues to serve that purpose and more. It's an empowering channel for those who are trying to cope with the emotional and mental challenges caused by COVID-19 and to boost the morale of frontliners, patients, as well as their families and friends. Globe wants you to be part of this community. They're encouraging their customers to share inspiring stories and messages of upliftment to those suffering from fear, stress, anxiety, and depression brought about by the pandemic. Just search for Hope Bank here on Facebook to be part of the community. Everyone is welcome to join and is encouraged to share their thoughts and messages of hope and light for the whole community. Your messages can come in any form: photos, artwork, quotes, songs, lyrics. Feel free to get creative in your expressions of hope and positivity. Tag your family members and friends or anybody you feel may benefit from such support. I joined the group, and it's really such a beautiful, positive, and safe space that you can go to when you need a break from bad news and negativity, and we all need that. This webinar is also a safe space where we can talk about mental health, the challenges you are facing during the pandemic, self-care, getting help, and why it's okay to not always be okay. We'll be hearing from experts and mental health advocates, and also accept questions from you, our viewers, so we can have an open and healthy discussion about this. minus the stigma. This is a no judgment zone, so get your questions ready. Our panelists will be answering them. Just keep typing them in the comments and we'll get to them in a bit. This is a really conversation. This is a really important conversation to have right now, and we're really happy to be having it with you. Mental health has been an important advocacy that Globe and the Inquirer have committed to, and that's something both companies have in common with our speakers today. I'm really excited to introduce to you this amazing group of people who have devoted their time and effort to empowering Filipinos and getting them to realize the importance of taking care of their mental health. I'm excited to introduce them to you now. Let's start with our first speaker. Our first speaker is a senator known for her tireless work in promoting public health, women's rights, and the welfare of the Filipino family. Since her election to the Senate in 2016, this senator has already championed 14 landmark laws, including the historic expanded maternity leave law, the Philippine mental health law, and the Safe Streets and Public Spaces law, or the Bawal Bastos law. As chairperson of the Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, this senator is currently working to expand the Solo Parents Act and to increase the monthly pension of senior citizens through the Lingap para kay Lolo at Lola bill. She has received many accolades even before becoming a legislator, including a 2005 Nobel Peace Prize nomination for her work in the peace movement. Despite her busy schedule, this senator is a loving and hands-on mother to 4 children, Kiko, Iana, Isa, and Cinta. Let's all give a warm welcome to Senator Risa Ontiveros. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon, Ms. Pam, at salamat. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat, mga mahal. At maraming salamat sa pag-imbita sa akin. So, have you checked in with yourselves today? Have you been taking care of yourselves? UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the anxiety and depression caused by the pandemic are seeds of a mental health crisis if left ignored. Mga mahal, please take care of yourselves. I can't emphasize that enough. The way we experience community has now changed. Grief and isolation become tremendously heavy when one must carry them on one's own. More people are becoming aware of the importance of mental health in such a precarious time. This collective grief that people feel is new to so many. Some have a hard time understanding these feelings, and even more confusing are the physical symptoms like insomnia and difficulty breathing. My office, in partnership with Mindcare and Akbayan Youth, offered a teletherapy service from April to June. We started the service at the height of mental health concerns, around a month into ECQ. And since then, we serviced 573 individuals. My office's teletherapy was just one service among many others, and many of which continue to this day. It was apparent from the start just how many people's mental health suffered at the sudden turn of the tide because of the pandemic. I'd also just like to thank our volunteer licensed psychologists who went above and beyond themselves to look out for their fellow Filipinos in a volatile and confusing time by providing their services for free. Taus-pusong pasasalamat po sa inyong lahat. To the public, I implore you to reach out through teletherapy, through the National Center for Mental Health's hotline, the Natasha Goldborn's Hope Line, and even to your family and friends. This pandemic has revealed how badly we need each other. Check up on each other. Drink 8 glasses of water a day. Turn off the news. Sorry, Inquirer, pero mabuhay kayo. Turn off the news once in a while. Do what you can. Do what you enjoy if you can. Rest. In the midst of a public health crisis, every facet of our health matters. We know better now how real mental health is. One of the most painful truths about death from mental illness is that we know it can be prevented. We know lives can be saved with the proper measures and avenues put in place in order to seek help. So many people have passed away or continue to suffer in the dark because of stigma that Ms. Pam mentioned at the beginning. only worsened by the isolation of this pandemic. This is why working on the mental health law was very important for me. We are responsible for the suffering that can be prevented and the pain that can be solaced. The mental health law that we passed 2 years ago was a major milestone, but even this needs to be reimagined in the time of COVID-19. Psychosocial intervention is important for us to ease back into society after quarantine. It's an essential component, especially for those who have never experienced anything collectively traumatic like this before. We need to bring psychosocial services to our frontliners, also mentioned by Ms. Pam, to our students, to our workers, both in urban and rural areas. We need to be creative about how we reimagine the law and assess the MH Act's implementation through technology available to the wider public. Mental health services can be quite expensive. In a time of financial anxiety, we need to look for ways that the public can avail of these services without straining their already strained finances further. Government should look into radio and TV programs that not only educate about the importance of mental health, but deliver information and methods that teach people how to practice mental health hygiene wherever we may be. While we study different programs, it would be crucial now to mobilize community-based mental health services and mental health service providers to be able to reach more people during this pandemic and even moving towards the so-called new normal, which should be a better and just new normal. LGUs and barangays work in closer proximity to the public and should be trained to handle mental health issues and programs in smaller groups that still respect our health protocols. The Department of Health should also look into capacitating contact tracers with basic mental health first aid so that they can help look out for people with MH issues in the community as they move through the community to link cases of infection. Our referral systems need to be refined so that we can establish a stronger network between our barangays and our hospitals and mental health service providers. This is unlike anything we've gotten to experience before. The emotions are new. The systems are new. Even I, in my half century and more of life so far, have never experienced anything like this. Mga mahal, you're not alone in your feelings of anxiety and isolation. The United Nations emphasized early on in the pandemic that mental health must, and I quote, be front and center of every country's response to and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The public's mental health will be the foundation of the society we will ease back into when the pandemic is over. We cannot afford another pandemic in another form. We must take care of ourselves and we must look out for each other. In your feelings of anxiety and isolation, reach out. In empathy for your friends and family, reach out. We must hold on to compassion for each other and ourselves. Amid all that is happening, remember that your mental health will always matter. Mga mahal, you will always matter. Maraming salamat po mga kasama.
Thank you so much, Senator. Now, our second speaker practices general adult psychiatry in Pasig and Quezon City and recently through telemental health or online therapy. Please welcome Dr. Corazon Angela M. Cuadro.
Good afternoon. So I am Angela, or Quads. Okay, my practice is in psychiatry. So inevitably, I tend to approach this discussion from psychopathology, but the discussion is for all. And from a general point of view of psychopathology, I hope we can bring in a discussion for everybody and even streamline it for each and every individual. Okay, so in April and May, neuroscience and public health scrambled for data to help us somehow anticipate and even mitigate the effects of pandemic on mental health. While we've had pandemics before, something of this scale we haven't experienced for the last 100 years. Okay, so let me somehow help you anticipate or know what to expect given the pandemic. So there has indeed been an increase in mental health problems following a pandemic. Findings have shown that mental health problems are increased, particularly depression, anxiety, and trauma symptoms. Okay, now, when we talk about mental health problems, we understand it to be in a continuum. At one end, normal. At the other end, psychopathologic. So this range includes all our normal human reactions. And at the other end, what would be considered abnormal, okay, or pathologic. So the pandemic will affect each of us depending on where we stand in the continuum, which is it fixed at one point, at uh, any given hour even. Okay, so what used to be minor, few, rather manageable, not just of anxiety or even sleep difficulties, will now be magnified, problematic even. If we have existing vulnerabilities or inherent predispositions to mental health problems, we can be at increased risk for psychopathologic levels given the pandemic. And if you already have a mental health diagnosis, you will expect exacerbations. Okay, so that's the notable effects of the pandemic. Okay. What then will help us at this point? Because I can go into discussion and you will read up discussions on why we have increased mental health problems, a lot of discussions as to how pandemics affect it, how loneliness can affect it. But I would want to take this opportunity to discuss instead how you experience the mental health problems during a pandemic. Okay, so perhaps we can also talk about how, when, in what forms you experience your anxieties or depressive symptoms given the pandemic. So not so much the why, because we we tend to think about why it happens. Okay, so then this brings me to a discussion of perhaps allocating time to learn about how you experience depressive and anxiety symptoms. Where do you feel it in your body? How does it talk to you in your thoughts? Okay, how does it urge you to behave? Okay, and this is in a way part of health education, in the same way that in this pandemic we try to learn about flu-like symptoms, in the same way that we try to learn about cardiac symptoms in heart attack. We also try to learn about health symptoms, okay? But it's not as straightforward. In the same way we have rather straightforward measures for fever, we have more tricky measures for how one experiences anxiety and one experiences depression. Okay, so perhaps I'd like to urge each and everyone to start discussing or start learning, start knowing yourselves more in terms of how you experience things. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Doc Quads. Now, our third speaker is an R&B artist from Manila who's currently based in Los Angeles. So while it's afternoon for most of us, it's actually nighttime for her. So we thank her for staying up For us, she's gaining traction in the underground music scene with her performance and sound. The successful release of her early singles in 2017, debut EP Grey in 2018, See Me album in 2019, as well as her live performances throughout Southeast Asia, paved the pathway to her latest sound. She has recently been featured on Complex, Power 106, Earmilk, Acclaim Australia, to name a few. Her newest releases, Hide My Love, No Rush, Corners, are available and streaming now on all digital platforms, showcasing her songwriting and musical evolution. She's also using her voice as a mental health advocate, sharing her own journey and battle against depression and anxiety. Everyone, please welcome Kiana V.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, especially amongst such an amazing group of advocates as well. I think I'm here because I have been fairly open about my struggles with my mental health. To be specific, my depression and anxiety. So I kind of want to share a little bit more of my journey for those who don't know, and also just to show that something like this can really affect anyone. My battle with depression started at a very young age. I just did not know what it was called yet. I felt alone even when I wasn't. A short amount of silence would somehow lead me to tears. It didn't make sense at a very young age. At one point, I even dropped out of school because getting up, getting dressed, having to leave my home, it was just very overwhelming, and I couldn't bring myself to do that. Of course, that then led to a series of events where I kind of, looked down on myself for having to leave school in the first place. And it was just like a domino effect. And it was pretty hard for me to get out of that. I was pretty good at masking it then. And if I'm being honest, I am very good at masking it now. But that's the thing about mental health. That's the thing that we shouldn't forget about mental health, is that there's no on and off switch. The moment you avoid taking care of yourself, you will start to deteriorate, and that goes for your physical health and your mental health. So yeah, back then this was not a topic that you could openly discuss or even understand. So even when I asked for a therapist from either family members or school counselors, it was taken personally and offensively. So I guess the reason why I'm passionate about advocating for mental health is because I don't want anyone to feel that way, to feel like they have to go through it alone, because it is a very hard burden to carry on your own. So thank you for having this, because I do believe these are conversations we need to continue having in order for us to understand how we can heal. That's it.
Thank you so much, Kiana. In the spirit of openness, I'm also really passionate about mental health, and I only became really passionate about it only after being diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. It was only then that I started really thinking about it and started realizing how much people needed to talk about it, because it was after that I realized that there were so many people around me who were going through it as well, but we just weren't talking about it. So yeah. So I'm really thankful that you're sharing your story with us today. Now, our fourth speaker is a graduate of BS Public Health from the University of the Philippines, Visayas, and is finishing his master's degree in health informatics in UP Manila. In 2016, together with Lawrence Joy de la Fuente, Gilbert Mina, Anika Mendoza, and Eve Zuniga, he co-founded Mental Health PH. That's hashtag Mental Health PH. It's a mental health advocacy group that maximizes social media and digital technology in promoting and protecting mental health in the Philippines. In 2019, Mental Health PH was the advocacy partner of Twitter International for its global campaign There Is Help, and was invited to be a member of the Advisory Council for Twitter Trust and Safety. Upon the invitation of United Global Mental Health PH went to Nairobi, Kenya for its global mental health campaign, Time to Invest. Our speaker today is also an apprentice at the Philippine Educational Theater Association, or PETA, where he was involved in the Lingap Sining project and the play Under My Skin that tackles HIV. He believes digital technology, theater arts, and other disciplines have a big role to play in addressing pressing public health issues. Please welcome Mr. Roy O. Dahil Dahil.
Hi, thank you so much, Pam, for inviting me here. Really honored to be virtually seated with a very awesome mental health champions. Right now, I'm just going to share some of our stories in the mental health PH. Let me just share my screen. Right, right. So, mental health PH was conceptualized during the event organized by Dr. Gia and the Health XPH team in 2016. It was the Social Media and Healthcare Summit, and the pre-conference question really struck me that time, and I've been thinking of answers to it going to the venue, and even after now. The question was, in what way can you use social media to promote certain health advocacy? In that conference, I met Lawrence, and she shared her story of having mental health problems in the Philippines. She was diagnosed with bipolar 2, but before that, she had to go through a lot, explaining it to her friends and family, looking for healthcare professional, looking for the right medications, and even looking for means to afford those services. And during that time, 2016, we still don't have mental health law. At kung maalala nyo pa, noong 2016, kasagsagan din yan ng mga ALDAB, hashtag OTWall, etc. So we thought, kung kaya ng social media mapaviral yung mga ito, baka kaya rin itong mapaviral ang isang prevalent but neglected public health issue, which is yung mental health. Baka magamit natin ang social media para mapakalat ang mga kwento tulad ng kay Lawrence. And naalala ko pa noon, nanginginig-nginig pa kami noon. Doc Gia was there, sobrang supportive while we're teaching the idea of using social media for mental health awareness. Then 4 years after, ayun, ito na kami. So Mental Health PH, it's an advocacy group that envisions a mentally healthy community and aims to promote and protect mental health using social media and digital technology. We have 3 key objectives: engage the community in promoting and protecting mental health, raise awareness about mental health, and improve access to mental health information and quality services. Different literature will have different names for this, but we just coined this 3S framework when we advocate for mental health: the self, society, and system. We believe that when you advocate for mental health, you advocate for good health seeking behavior, normalizing conversations about mental health, and treating mental health as important as physical health. But hindi siya nagtatapos sa individual lang. The society has a role to play in promoting mental health. We have to educate people and end the stigma about mental health and mental illnesses, and cultures and norms that are not helpful, like toxic masculinity, romanticizing overwork and burnout, and etc. And ultimately, the system has to support this. There should be policies and laws in place to protect these individuals. We have 3 O's approach to deliver this message. We have online, on ground, and onwards. Online, we maximize different social media channels. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and recently we also partnered with Viber and TikTok. On Twitter, we have this campaign called Usap Tayo. It's a regular tweet chat happening every 10, 20s, and 30s of the month, or months ending with 0. Kasi nga, we want to zero the stigma, zero the suicide cases. On ground, we organize different events for in school, workplaces, and even in places na less intimidating, like the coffee shops. Last year, we partnered with Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf for those on-ground events. And to ensure sustainability of our advocacy, we established different chapters in the region. So we have now in Iloilo and Cebu, and soon, hopefully, in Bicol. We have also engagements with different national government agencies like the National Center for Mental Health, the Philippine Council for Mental Health, and the World Health Organization. And last February, we also went to Nairobi, Kenya, as the Philippine representative to the United Global Mental Health Speak Your Mind campaign. Our battle cry this year is to urge leaders, political and business leaders, to invest in mental health. Other than economic implications, investing on people's mental health has a lot of returns on the individual, in the society, and a change in the system as a whole. In the same way that when we advocate for mental health, we look at the self, society, and system, prioritizing mental health has a ripple effects on the individual's physical health, has impact to the society, and can cause change in the system or community as a whole. Through social media and digital technologies, we want to share stories like Lawrence, involve people like Lawrence, and help people like Lawrence. So if you want to know more about Mental Health PH and what we're doing, you can check our social media channels listed here. That's all. Thank you, and handing over to you, Pam.
Thank you, Roy. Our final speaker is a practicing medical doctor specializing in occupational medicine and is a graduate of the University of Santo Tomas. She has been a breast cancer survivor for almost 4 years now and is currently the Philippine leader for Livestrong Foundation and the national advisor of the Youth for Mental Health Coalition. She is the former chief medical officer of Global Telehealth Incorporated, which runs Globe's Consulta MD, and a co-founder of Health XPH, which promotes the responsible use of social media in healthcare, amongst others. She was a previous project consultant to the World Health Organization Western Pacific Regional Office on Health Lifestyle in the Workplace. She is currently the head of Makati Medical Center's Women Wellness Center. She's a staunch mental health advocate and life and leadership blogger on her personal page entitled Sand and Stone at www.giaseason.com and her brainchild Unsaid Feelings at unsaid-feelings.com, which serves as a platform where individuals can write and let their feelings out with no judgment. She also hosts her own digital series on CNN Philippines, G Talks, which talks about life, love, and anything mental health related. She is also the resident doctor of Boys Night Out on Magic 89.9 FM radio. Please welcome Dr. Gia B. Season. Good afternoon, Dr. Gia.
Hello, Pam, and good afternoon to everyone and to my co-panelists. It's super an honor to be with you. So, I'll just make this short, but I think it's a very well-known fact that everyone, as in no one is spared, has been affected by this pandemic. Although there's no impact study yet that's really concrete that has been released regarding its effects, the following are emerging concerns that we are seeing. I'm sure Quads can agree to this. A lot of people have, well, us doctors, there's always the fear of dying, honestly, dying and getting infected. And share ko lang that I've actually lost an uncle because of COVID. He is a doctor. And the challenge for us as a family is we weren't able to carry out yung burol, yung proper ceremony. And that was very sad. And he needed to be cremated within 12 hours. So dun pa lang, it was a very difficult time for our family. And let's talk about uncertainties of livelihoods and future. Ang daming affected. Social isolation, which actually leads to feelings of hopelessness, loneliness. There is an increased incidence of domestic abuse and violence, starkly increased rates, and of course, exposure to negative images on media, and negative coping mechanisms as well as example, alcohol, drugs, or tobacco, which we don't tolerate. So with all these in mind, we have to understand that the consequences of this pandemic might not just be short term. These concerns may actually persist after a long, long time. And so that is why resilience matters. now more than ever. And by resilience, I don't mean to glamorize the concept of resilience of Filipinos. What I mean is that if these concerns will be long term, we have to learn to endure and start building our defenses. That is why, literally, as the title goes dito sa webinar na to, we really need to start a new day every day and choose to start one. Equally important for us is also to reflect on how our individual actions affect those of us in the community. Kasi sa advocacy ng mental health, it's not only self. We also have to think of community care. So again, that's really the heart of the advocacy. And in a period where everyone might feel some form of distress, we need to be more kind to others and more importantly to ourselves. Kaya nga, di ba, common question like we started off with Senrisa asking how you are. Kasi nga, at the bottom of the pyramid, it's all about taking care of you and yourself. That is why conversations on setting goals, on the value of productivity, and on what is truly essential should be started and mainstream so that we can map out ways on how we can start to recalibrate, how we can start all over again and humanize our lives more. Better and just tomorrow. Yan yung cry natin. And as we transition, and I think we are already there on how life will be, we have to acknowledge the things that didn't work for us so that we can let go of them and look forward to embrace those that will make us grow and become better people in the end. So that's it. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Doc Gia. It's good to see people from all over the Philippines tuning in. We see you. We've been seeing Pangasinan, Butuan, Quezon City, Agusan del Sur, Cavite, Tawi-Tawi, Dumaguete, Pasay, Negros Occidental, Benguet, Ozamis. I think this just shows that people really need to have this conversation and that we are all longing for community. So if you're longing for community, I want to remind you that Globe welcomes everyone in their Hope Bank community. You can find it right here on Facebook. All you have to do is search for Hope Bank, and there people share thoughts and messages of hope and light. You can do it in the form of photos, artwork, quotes. Get creative. It's a really safe and positive place. Now let's dive right into the discussion. To everyone tuning in, please feel free to ask your questions. Again, we repeat, this is a safe space. This is a no judgment zone. You know, if you've been having questions, like you're wondering, is this depression or am I just sad? You can ask these questions and our panelists will be answering them later on. But for now, I want to start with, I know some of you mentioned it in your introduction, but I still want to ask, for those who want to answer, why is mental health such an important advocacy for you? What led you to becoming a champion of this cause? Who wants to go first? Doc Gia, I see you smiling.
Hala. Okay, so we have to remember that before the mental health law was passed, talking about mental health concerns was a taboo. So we come from a place of really sobrang uneasy man lang to even tell people you're feeling bad or you're not feeling well in terms of mental health. With the advocacy, which Senator Risa was really active, no, and we thank her for that. Advocacies actually opened doors to be able to start talking about how to address the stigma, the discrimination, to pinpoint possible structural problems and propose solutions to it. So I think that's where advocacy comes in, and it actually also provides avenues for discussion, just like what we have now, to be able to speak and involve people. It's inclusive, and of course, yeah, for me, that's what's those are the drivers I have in being a mental health advocate.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to answer?
For me, I think, sorry. I've lost loved ones to mental illness. some may know that my brother has been very vocal as well about his struggles with his mental health. And it is not easy to kind of just look past that and not want to speak up for it and not want to stand up for those who may be going through the same thing. So if it isn't easy to keep your mouth shut about it, what more is it for those who are actually going through it, right? So not everyone has the voice. So I'm glad that everyone that's part of this panel right now has been, standing up, speaking out, using their platforms in order to really, cause good change, positive change. That's, in the long run, really pushing our society forward. So that's why I'm here, I would say.
Roy?
Yeah. So yun nga kanina, I shared isa sa mga nag-udyok at pinakahugot namin when we started mental health PH was the story of Lawrence and how her story create change sa community and realization. But as I continue advocating for mental health, hindi na lang siya kwento ng someone na I meet sa conference. Yung circle mas lumiliit na mas lumiliit. Hindi na lang siya kakilala ng kakilala ko ang apektado ng mental illnesses or mga mental health na mga stigma. Nagiging kakilala ko na. The circle getting closer, na minsan hindi na lang siya kakilala, minsan naging kaibigan, naging matalik na kaibigan, at member ng pamilya. And also allowed me then to self-reflect. O nga no, ako nga ba? Ano-ano nga ba yung mga ginagawa ko in order to protect my mental health? And the more na we talk about it, the more that we create safe space for people, sa friends natin, sa family natin, at mas dumadaming ang pag-uusap at nakakatulong tayo about it and mas nagiging open at natutulungan natin sila. So yun yung pinakahugot ko for advocating for mental health.
Thank you. Now, I want to ask our doctors, Doc Angela and Doc Gia. There have been many reports, and this was mentioned in the intro too, that there's really been a rise in depression and anxiety, especially in millennials and Gen Z during the pandemic. Is this something that you've been personally observing, Doc Quads, in your practice, and Doc Gia in your work as National Advisor of the Youth for Mental Health Coalition? And why do you think it is? Parang why are young people really susceptible to this?
Okay. There has been an increase in but this is not an isolated phenomenon. If we look at the most vulnerable, we include the frontliners, the first responders, the marginalized, of course, the elderly, okay, and those who have existing vulnerabilities. But let's focus on the millennials and the Gen Z. The shortest answer is, the easiest is, it so happens they are in the age group where we see the epidemiology of most of our mental health conditions. So that's one. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, because we now witness a unique way of presenting anxieties and depressive symptoms, because we do have the social media now, and our millennials and our Gen Zers have their unique ways of expressing human experience. How about Doc Gia?
Same ako with quads kasi they're really and we're in an age that we are able to talk about it. Diba, I mentioned it earlier nga that before, when you talk about mental health, it's really taboo. But as it has been evolving, people have been more open about it. Pero again, I'd like to end this question by, I hope there's increased mental health avenues where they can actually seek support, because high numbers actually reflect the greater need for mental health support. So, yun lang, sana mas madaming avenues, because, di ba, hindi enough yung kulang na kayo quads, di ba, sa psych pa lang, kulang ng one psychiatrist, 2 patients. So we need more avenues for support. True. With the rising need.
Speaking of this time being parang a more open time for people to talk about mental health. I noticed that young people are also more willing to open up. Parang these generations are more. What do you think is the reason behind this? And I think it's beautiful that they really open up about it. And do you think possible now we're tracking the rise in the cases in young people because they're opening up about it more than the older generations are?
Yeah. Manila. Okay. Yeah, we are witnessing how our millennials and Gen Z are able to express, and that's really good, because having a space to talk about it is already forms already part of health provision, right? So this, like what we have here, okay, having to talk about it, having to discuss, having to be allowed to explore emotions, behavioral health, that already is health provision in a way.
True. Thank you. Senator Risa, we were talking about your kids a while ago. As a mom of Gen Zers and millennials, I think you have one millennial.
One
Um,
millennial, the bunso.
what have been the biggest challenges you've seen them face during the pandemic, and how did they deal with them?
I was really thinking about them when we were talking, well, when Kiana and Roy were talking earlier, and just now when we were talking about young people. Kasi my three eldest are all graduated na, nagtatrabaho na, and then yung bunso na lang ang nag-aaral pa. And this pandemic, pambihira talaga siya. It's not like other, say, natural disasters we've had before, because it's actually forced a physical change in our physical lifestyle. Ganun siya ka, parang naging existential threat, na if we don't observe these precautions just of physical health, of wearing masks and always keeping our hands clean and being physically distant, ang hirap gawin siguro para sa kahit sinong tao. Pero I think lalo na sa ating mga Pinoy, we're such a touchy-feely people, and lalo na when we are faced with catastrophes or near catastrophes like this, nakakapalakas ng loob natin if we can embrace, di ba? And we can be with each other. So, ino-observe ko rin yung mga anak ko kasi three of them were still living with me before the pandemic struck. Tapos yung isa, umuwi na rin recently. And nakikita ko how, they've all, like their generations, they've always been very vocal about various things that also used to be taboo before, like mental health. So whether reproductive health yan, or yung mga spiritual journeys, ganyan. So makwento talaga sila, very conversational. But I know from some of the things they share, or sometimes just from observing them, na siguro na-shock din sila na so early in their lives, say as young working people, or yung bunso habang nag-aaral pa siya, biglang parang nag-iiba talaga yung mundo. And so I was also so touched by what Doc Gia was talking about earlier, na we really need to talk about resilience, not at all in any romantic way, but in a real way. I almost feel like it's another creation process we're going through all over the planet. And siguro, and sana, palagay ko it's exciting also for young people to be part of, in a way, recreating our planet, recreating the way we, the human race, live on it and with all the other species. Pero siguro maya't maya nakaka-overwhelm din. 'Di ba? Kasi yung dati ng responsibilities nila sa pagtatrabaho o pag-aaral is now overlaid by this, really, existential question. So the whole idea of the new normal, I think, is something that maybe is also partly frightening to them, but I do have faith that they will really embrace at makakarinig tayo sa kanila, the way I heard so much from them about the mental health bill then until it became law. There's another young person here, si Doc RJ, was so much a part of it. I do believe that they will also embrace this question about what should the new normal look like. And I'm sure we'll hear all the voices of the young people in the times to come.
Thank you, Senator. Kiana, you're a millennial. For you personally, what have been the biggest challenges of the new normal, and how have you dealt with them?
I think what the new normal has done has really, it's just forced me to confront issues that I've already had in the past. You're home alone. You no longer have distractions. And a challenge that I've always had, and I think it's a challenge that my generation has actually, is really just living in the present. Because you're isolated, you don't have the distraction of your friends, or being able to just book a grab or go for a walk. You know what I mean? There are all these things that as someone with anxiety, I would easily run to kind of keep my mind off the things that I had to focus on. But with all this time on my own, I've also had to kind of change my whole thought process. I've had to really confront, the bad habits that I have been allowing myself to continue doing, and how I perpetuate also toxic thinking, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, there's a lot of conversations that I've had to have with myself about just how much as well I've been taking for granted. Um, also being in a completely different country now from my family, the change in scenery, all the canceled plans, the change of lifestyle. It has been very hard to just set my feet on the ground, set a very healthy boundary that allows me to plan for the future, but also just sit back and appreciate also what I'm going through now. I guess appreciate the process. Um, and then of course there is the social media, and how you kind of think, like, she seems to be dealing with it better than I am. So you have to also learn how to put these things away, and ground yourself, and just focus on what you can do right now, what you can do for yourself, and let go of the things that you have no control over.
Thank
Very
you.
challenging. much
Thank
much easier said than done.
Very true. Roy, for young people, like Kiana was mentioning, social media is a double-edged sword. It can be so empowering, but at the same time, it can be a really toxic place. And it's not even because you have trolls, but that they're really toxic. But you also have, yung tendency to compare yourself, and yun na nga, like, see, like, how come this person seems to be living a much better life than I am? So your organization does a beautiful thing. Mental Health PH uses social media as a tool to promote and protect mental health in the Philippines. What advice would you have for millennials and Gen Zers who have a complicated relationship with social media? I feel like we all have a complicated relationship with social media.
Right, right. Thank you, Pam. Yeah. So kasama rin sa pag-advocate namin ng mental health, yung pag-advocate din ng digital literacy and how you are using social media. Few tips, siguro practical tips on how you can protect yourself from the dangers of social media is to be mindful of the three questions: the what, the how, and the why. So be mindful of what content you are sharing. Ito ba ay totoo? Ito ba ay fake news? Ito ba ay nakakatulong sa tao sa paligid mo? And also what content are you consuming? So ano-ano ba yung itsura ng feed mo? Ano-ano yung mga nakikita mo parate? Ito ba ay be conscious din. Ito ba yung mga content na nababasa mo? Fake news din ba to? Tama ba to? Be critical about the content that you're consuming. And be also mindful kung ano nga ba talaga yun. And then second question is be also mindful how you are sharing it. So yes, there's the content, but the manner of sharing it can also affect other people. Kasi nga, emotions are very contagious. Misinformation is also contagious. So you have to be mindful how you are sharing it, in the manner na nakakatulong din ba ito sa iyo or nakakatulong din ba ito sa ibang tao. And then be also mindful of how were you affected by this content. So after seeing series of content, try to take a step back and wait. Self-check muna. Anong epekto nito sa akin? Wait, masyado na ba akong naapektuhan nito? Masyado na ba itong, masyado bang negative yung nakikita ko? Masyado na ba puro anger yung nakikita ko? And paano ako naapektuhan nito? Nakakapagtrabaho pa ba ako? Or something like that. And then the last question is, be mindful of the why. Why are you using social media? Is it a means to express? Is it a means to connect? Is it a means to inspire people? Is it a means to gain information? And ask yourself, paano siya nakakatulong sa'yo? Paano ka nakatulungan ng social media na to? And if yung mga answers mo sa mga questions dun kanina sa taas ay hindi na nagiging helpful, it's also okay to take a time off in social media. Take a digital detox. Find other means to get those kinds of information, to get to stay connected with your friends, to stay connected with your families, to stay connected with the current events na nangyayari sa atin ngayon. The social media is just an evolved form of communication. It might take a while na kung ayaw natin ng social media, it might take a while for us na mapatigil ito. But yung makaya natin gawin is to know how it's affecting us and to know how to protect ourselves from the dangers of it so that we can maximize the positive effects or the positive use of this social media.
Thank you. Okay, this question anybody can answer. So millennials and Gen Zers are very social beings, you know. And then all like these are the people who like going out, who always have fun with friends. And then because of the lockdown, the quarantine, all of a sudden they're cut off from their friends. They can't go out, they can't do the things that they used to do. You know, they thrive on freedom. Do you think that virtual communication with friends is enough? What advice would you have for people who are feeling isolated and lonely? And a lot of people are.
Okay, may I
Yes,
May I say something first about feeling isolated or lonely? Because we might have a tendency to scramble to shove it away. Okay, so right now, I think what's happening globally is that we are learning, knowing ourselves in ways we hadn't experienced before. So, you know how when you unlock a new skill or fall in love, find ways of loving another or something, that's exhilarating. But this is somehow the same. We are now discovering new ways of feeling lonely, new ways of feeling vulnerable. So it's not as comfortable a process, but it is at the core of human experience. Okay. So what then do we do? And what's happening? So given the pandemic, what used to be, we used to have coping mechanisms, okay, whether healthy, unhealthy, we used to have a plethora of them, and now it's shrunk to devastating levels, because I could still feel lonely or angry walking in the mall or driving, and now I'm stuck at home. Okay, so we have to find ways to explore new coping mechanisms. Okay, and talking about virtual, so let's go to the question of virtual spaces. So they are virtual. Remember that these are virtual spaces, but we keep real communication. So we have started virtual classrooms, but the learning is real. Okay, so we have virtual clinics, but actual therapy. Okay, so again, just go back to what's at the core of the human experience. Okay, but kaya lang that takes a lot of exposing ourselves, our vulnerabilities.
True. The pandemic has been a really challenging time, and we get bad news every day. But the numbers are still rising. So many businesses are closing down. And the tricky thing is people want to stay updated, but it can be overwhelming. So how do you suggest everyone, especially young people who, were very woke, fulfill that desire to stay informed while at the same time not be too overwhelmed?
This is a very good question that I really want an answer to, because that's something honestly that I've been struggling with over the past few months, with being away from home. I want to know what's going on in the Philippines, but then being in America with, the Black Lives movement now at the forefront of all the political issues, it's been very overwhelming. And I just, yeah, I want to hear from our doctors on board or whoever has advice how I could still kind of set the right boundaries for myself.
Yeah, let's pick up with the boundaries part, Kiana. So personally, what I do, because I have a tendency to be overwhelmed. So what I do is I limit myself to just two credible sources from the Philippines coming from your end. Credible sources where I can get facts, because you really also have to know about what's happening here. And I know touching base with your family is no problem, no issue. Whenever I listen to I watch your dad do his concerts, he always says hi to you. And that's very, very touching. It's so cute. Anyway, so for you, just limit the social media outlets that you follow, keeping yourself in touch with the Philippines. And literally use the block mute um, feature of your phone, because there's power in that. So especially when everything is really overwhelming with the way things are in the Philippines. So that's my personal take on your question.
The
Great.
quads, your input, please.
Oh, um, just to add to that, the way we do that should be with much awareness. Be
Yeah.
very mindful, okay? Because the prerequisite is to recognize first, what does it mean for you to when you're overwhelmed? How does it feel like? Again, it's not very much the why, so um, not much analysis needed. Just when you might notice that I get a little flutter here when I heard something about
Mhm.
this. Yung ganon. So a prerequisite is to be mindful, know what overwhelm, what anxiety feels like, what does hurt feel like to you. Okay, so and then because when we get overwhelmed, okay, that's okay, that's expected, right? It's not telling us to not get overwhelmed, but what might be very dangerous is getting overwhelmed without knowing we are feeling that way. Okay, so the prerequisite is to be mindful that this is me being overwhelmed, so this is me trying to turn it off, okay, because I am setting boundaries like this. So it has to come with much awareness, and perhaps just tying it in with what Roy said also. It's a double-edged sword. Perhaps we can call this the social media age, in the same way we had the Stone Age or the fire by fire age, or in the Industrial Revolution. When they first discovered fire, it was revolutionary. They can cook, they can warm themselves and survive the harsh winters, but of course they can get burned with it. Okay, so it's the same, and we are now in the social media age, so we can treat it that way. And I will also tie it with mental health. The task is to temper. Okay, so the task is to temper, to regulate. And again, the prerequisite is awareness. Okay.
Thank you, Doc. I like that fire metaphor. I love it. Okay, now let's talk about being stuck with your families at home. Um, so for when a family is stuck in the home for months nonstop, things can get tricky, diba? Like nagkaka-friction. It's inevitable. What advice would you have for millennials and Gen Zers? How do they handle difficult moments with family when they're stuck in the same place? Like there's no walking out here, walang breather, diba? How can they handle difficult family moments while also taking care of their mental health? Who wants to go? Senator Risa, do you want to talk as a mom?
I always like talking as a mom. I was really thinking on many of the questions you've been talking about in the context of yung naging karanasan ng pamilya namin the past several months. Of course, in the worst of situations, yung sinabi ni Doc Gia kanina na, say, women's advocates have been noting the rise in domestic abuse under quarantine conditions. Children advocates have been noting the rise in OSEC or online sexual exploitation of children, also under quarantine conditions. But even in the best of times, yon, pwedeng magka-cabin fever yung families who generally naman get along with each other. At syempre, lahat naman tayo mga pamilya, we have our issues. Some we've been able to resolve, some not. At yung iba, pwedeng long-standing na rin. So, ang naging karanasan ko the past several months, well, I really enjoyed that all my kids were there. I hope they enjoyed it as much as I was enjoying it. I better check. Pero napansin ko rin na, say, two of them really have improved their relationship with each other the past several months dahil lang sa parang conditions of enforced closeness and being locked up at home. Meron ding mga iba sa amin na sometimes we're getting on each other's nerves already, precisely because we can't have that time out from each other as we used to before, o hindi kami makalabas ng malaya tulad ng dati to have other experiences na pwede naming iuwi, diba? Ibaon pa uwi and to add to a sometimes positive, sometimes negative, basta dynamic situation at home. So I don't think there's any particular advice I would give my kids as Gen Zers and as millennials, except maybe just to be more keenly aware na dahil nga pandemic, with the really extraordinary pressures it places on us, at dahil may quarantine, na maybe our old issues are magnified, are sharpened. It may give us the opportunity to talk about them more openly, resolve some of it, if not all of it. Pero baka rin yung iba na hindi pa namin kayang i-resolve, mas mahirap tiisin. And we have to really give each other even more patience. Kasi hindi rin naman the opposite extreme na dahil pandemic, dahil quarantine, biglang kaya na nating resolvahin lahat. So this family life is a lifetime work in progress. It's just that now we're in such an extraordinary moment. And siguro lastly about that question, napansin ko rin na yung siguro unang 3 linggo ng quarantine, I was doing okay. I thought, oh, I can handle this kasi enjoy naman ako tahimik, enjoy naman ako with more privacy. But, at the end of 3 weeks, I started to cry. Kasi namimiss mo talaga yung mga ibang taong dati na nakikita mo, no? So, it's just something for us to be aware of and to help each other adjust to, especially as we're moving towards a new normal. And we're still to shape what that new normal is.
Thank you, Senator. It's true, like the things we used to take for granted. Now, I even find myself missing shaking the hands of people you meet. Diba? It was such a simple thing that you would think we would be doing it forever, but now bawal. So it's been a really strange time. Okay, let's talk about some millennials and the older kids of the Gen Z who are working their first jobs and then now they find themselves working from home. I find that even personally, striking that work-life balance is a lot tougher when you're working and living in the same place. What tips would you have for young employees? And also, there are also a lot of millennials and Gen Zers who freelance, and it's extra hard for them because work has dried up talaga. A lot of them are in creative industries also where there's so much uncertainty, like musicians, walang gigs. So, what and this causes a lot of anxiety. How do you recommend that they handle these things?
Siguro I'll share lang po on the second question on how you can strike a balance or parang how you can set boundaries. Isa sa mga personal na ginagawa ko. But I'm saying this with super caution na recognizing not everyone might have the circumstance to do it or might not have the luxury of the space. But for me, when I trying to work from home, I set a certain space na dito ako magtatrabaho. Kahit gaano man yung kaliit or kahit gaano man yung not very office looking. But I try to set that space na, okay, this is my workstation. And then dito sa other side, ito yung aking safe space. This is where I drop all my works. I'll just focus on myself, self-care, and read books or anything. And then this is the area na nagtatrabaho lang ako. So try to set those boundaries, physical boundaries. And then in one of the talks na natin namin, there's also a practical tip to to try to dress up. Napaka simple lang, pero try before starting your work from home, try to take a bath, change sa normal office work mo. Sa iba, nakakatulong daw 'yon na para mag-set ng mindset na okay, nasa work zone ako. And then after the work zone, punta ka na ulit sa iyong safe space. On the third question, I have no answer, but I really like to share sentiments kasi nga I have friends from the theater field, and sobrang naapektuhan talaga kami sa pandemic na to since hindi allowed na mag-create ng shows, mag-shoot, and then even the play Under My Skin na kung saan I was part of got canceled because of the pandemic. So I'm really hoping na sana merong parang way the government or other people to help these artists, especially sa mga ngayong araw na to na sobrang difficult for everyone.
So true. Thank you. For everyone, what tips would you have for millennials and Gen Z in terms of taking care of their mental health as they navigate the new normal? Because I feel like we're all still starting to learn what the new normal is. Like it's not even final yet, diba? Things are changing every day. What tips would you have for them to make sure that they're taking care of their mental health?
Well, I'll start it off now. So, I think it's about time that we take each day one day at a time. Diba, we always say about baby steps, ganon. Take it one day at a time. Celebrate your small wins, and small wins may also mean that you were able to exercise for 10 minutes today. So nothing is too small. And I hope, despite these difficult times, we all anchor on hope, because just like anything, although we don't know when this is going to end, this will pass. This will be over. Although uncertain yung when, but let's just make do with what we have, and let's work towards that common goal on becoming again a better and just society.
Thank you. What can they do naman for friends or family members who are struggling? Because that's a question that comes up a lot. They don't know how to handle it. What if a family member is experiencing anxiety or depression? How do they deal with that?
Maybe just to the presupposition sometimes is maybe we don't feel as comfortable helping out or reaching out or sitting with friends or loved ones going through discomfort, because who wants to sit with discomfort, right? So maybe it starts with a willingness to be uncomfortable together. So I will be very makulit about this. Okay, we work towards awareness. Okay, so we might not be able to promise solutions. Who can? Okay, so we might not be able to promise solutions or promise getting better, but definitely there is something we can do to help our loved ones gain awareness or maybe figure out what resistance there might be to awareness. That's something workable.
Thank you. And to anyone on the panel, what would you like to tell people who are experiencing and struggling and they're scared to ask for help? Because a lot of people are still reluctant to open up about it.
Right. If I can say something, one thing that I constantly remind myself is to let my loved ones love me. Are the days that I refuse to let anyone in. So it is very hard to take that first step, to kind of open up and let someone know how you're feeling. But it's much more helpful than to just keep it in and to hold those maybe dark thoughts or uncomfortable feelings to yourself. So yeah, I guess my advice, that's it, is just to let is really really to let your loved ones love you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much to our panelists. Once again, we want to thank our co-presenter and campaign partner, Globe. Globe invites you to join the Hope Bank community by searching for Hope Bank here on Facebook. Everyone is welcome and encouraged to share thoughts and messages of hope and light for the whole community. We also want to give special thanks to our organization partners, Philippine Daily Inquirer, Inquirer.net, Inquirer Super, and Scout. Now let's move on to the second half of our inclusive online discussion. We will be asking you questions from our viewers, and we have a lot of really interesting questions. Okay, here we go. Please talk. This one is from Ness Olazo. Please talk about the challenges of finding the right mental health care professional and service in this country, especially now during this pandemic. How would you address these hurdles?
I think it's from Pam. I learned, like, finding a good fit in terms of mental health professionals is like dating. Lisa, there has to be a good fit. Okay, but what we can perhaps do is direct you to a database. Okay, a portal of contact persons, which I think Inquirer will help us with.
Yes,
Okay, so
we'll
we will
provide.
give you
Yeah.
contact numbers.
I said it before and I will say it again. I wish there was Tinder for psychiatrists and psychologists, because yeah, it's really like dating. From Ana Maria Soriano, are depression and other mental health issues a byproduct of our current lifestyle? Is there a correlation between mental health issues and the income level of individuals?
Quads, go.
Sagutin na na. Okay.
Quads, go.
Okay. Yeah, of course, lifestyle will affect, not perhaps in a causation sense, but more correlation. In the same way, also lifestyle is part of a holistic approach to managing mental health. Okay. The second question: is there a
Correlation between mental health issues and income level of individuals?
Yes, okay, yes, but in terms of knowing if you will have more, if you will be more predisposed given a certain socioeconomic factor, a demographic factor, I think categorically for this discussion, no. Okay, for this discussion, the safe answer is no, but because you might end up feeling it has only to do with that lifestyle factor, no. When we are talking about it today, especially given the pandemic, okay, like we've mentioned earlier, it will affect you, depends on where you are in the spectrum of mental health problems. Okay, it affects everybody globally.
Okay, from Shea Palomo, a lot of us are working at home, and it seems like the stress level of working at home has a significant difference than being able to go to work in the office and get to have a chance to mingle with coworkers. Plus, there's this feeling of being unproductive. What do you think is the best way to cope with your day to day challenges? The transition from working in the office to working at home has been difficult for a lot of us. There, who wants to answer that?
Maybe I'll give a short a short tip, and then the others can just add
Yes,
in.
please.
Just maintain a routine. This is the most basic in terms of neurophysiology, is to maintain a routine, and that already helps regulate.
Thank you. I will keep that in mind as well. Anyone else want to answer that, or should I'll go to the next question. Okay, this one's interesting too. From McCoy, good afternoon. Are there any tips for guys who don't open up about their problems? It is not yet that normal when guys show their weakness or their problems on social media, or even opening up to guy friends. Is there an avenue for guys to ask advice about their mental health? It's true, no? Guys are less likely to open up about mental health. Tama ba, Doc?
But I think it's because of the way we bring up our kids. Actually, I was looking towards Roy to answer the question, but I just jumped in kasi in each person naman, in each of our pagkatao, there's both the feminine and the masculine aspect ng pagkatao. It's just that, bakit ba? Tayo mga parents, we tend to develop more the masculine side in our sons and then the feminine side in our daughters. Tapos, when they behave certain ways, we justify it that way or we explain it that way. But there's a whole person capable of blooming in each individual, both masculine and feminine aspects. Okay, bato ko na kay Roy.
Nagdagan ko lang din siguro po, Senator Riza, na currently, parang kasi merong culture na nabuo na whenever you are a man or yung man-up culture, you are expected to be not vulnerable, to be strong, na kaya mong akayin yung sarili mo, hindi mo kailangan tulong ngayon. So I think the problem, yung reason why men are not seeking help is partly because of that kind of culture na we are passing to the next generation and generations of men. So it has to stop now, and we have a role to play on changing that culture or redefining if we need to define masculinity. We need to define masculinity na it's not about how strong you are, how physically not vulnerable you are or something like that, but masculinity could be defined as the show of vulnerability, the show of kindness, the show of love and respect to other people. So it really starts from us and how we also understand masculinity. To answer din McCoy, if there are organizations right now, to my knowledge right now, yung meron ako alam is sa Iloilo, there's an organization called Man Up. Man Up Iloilo, I think, the name of the organization. So it's parang a safe space for men to talk about their mental health if they're not open yet talking it to their friends or other colleagues if they want to talk to strangers. And I also promote na din the hotlines kasi yung hotlines natin, the NSMH hotlines, the NGF hotlines, it's a safe space. It's a safe space. Walang judgment regardless if lalaki ka or babae ka. You're free to share there and you're free to talk about what you're going through and what you're feeling.
Thank you.
Pam, if I could just quickly add kay Roy.
Yes, please.
Marami ring mga libro and which we could probably access even online, and medyo dated ito pero I had always loved yung Women Who Run with the Wolves ni Clarissa Pincola Estes, and then yung counterpart niya sa mga lalaki naman yung Iron John ni Robert Bly. So they both talk about yung pagdevelop ng buong pagkatao across that the false divide between masculinity and femininity. I'm sure there are more recent ones at mga Pinoy publications din.
Thanks, Senator. Actually, this reminded me that when I was first trying to figure out what was going on with me, because I really didn't expect to be diagnosed with depression, parang it really came out of nowhere. The way I confirmed it was through webcomics. I was looking at webcomics, and then there was one that I had read before. It's called Hyperbole and a Half. She's a really funny girl, but she did a series on depression that's so accurate. But the first time I read it, before it was happening to me, I really couldn't relate. And then when I went back to it, I was like, whoa, this is me. And then I started looking up. There are so many webcomics online that parang reflect the experience of living with anxiety and depression. And it's also a good way to share with friends or family members who don't understand what you're going through. When you show them that link, parang it's so easy to understand because it's drawn and so yeah, it's been really helpful. Okay, next question. This one came up when Roy was talking about handling social media and asking yourself why. So asking the why for bashers, why do you bash and make nasty comments? Is bashing a sign of a mental health problem? The quads, parang para sa'yo itong question na to.
Oo nga.
Okay. We can get
Good
into
one.
a discussion of this in psychosocial sense, sociology perhaps, but because this is for you, streamlined to the individual, let us shift discussion of this in terms of what questions that does it ask of you. Okay, when I feel this way, what gets me offended? How do I feel when I hear words like this? So like, just ano lang I'm not answering the question in the way I think you're asking it, okay? But
It's okay.
but let's shift to again, ang kulit ko kasi with awareness. What does it how does it affect you? Okay, so it starts asking questions of ourselves. What makes you uncomfortable? How does this affect you? What does this remind you? How do you feel it? Okay, what does it make you do? Does it make you want to bang the keyboard or whatever? Okay, so ano lang, shift lang ulit natin, okay? Because there might be a lot. It can be political, it can be whatever, okay? External to ourselves. And then we can lump it all up to external stressors. So gusto ko lang i-shift ulit yung focus to internal, okay? And ask questions internally.
Yes, true. Okay, Doc, people are asking, may bayad po ba ang online or virtual consultation and how much po?
Generally, yes.
Yeah, people usually ask, yeah.
Yes, generally yes. Same as hospitals. As to the payments, I think malawak 'yon. Those who provided for free means subsidized siya by something else.
Yeah.
So yan. But we have a range of services, online services also. So the our target is that the price or the cost should not be obstacle to seeking help. So meron, but again, I will direct to our database na makakalap natin maya-maya. No?
Correct. Yeah, it's a really wide range because doctors charge, diba, different rates. But yun na nga, the important thing to know is, kunyari, you don't have the budget for it because totoo, the meds are expensive, the sessions can be expensive. Pero kung wala tayong budget for that, it shouldn't stop us from getting help. Kasi yun na nga, we have hotlines that we can call, maraming organizations that are willing to help without charging anything. Okay. Next
Yes,
question.
Senator.
Okay. Speaking of directories, thank you, Roy, for providing this. This is a list of available online mental health services in the Philippines during the pandemic. We're gonna post the link in the comments, but in case you wanna go there now, ncmh-is.com/directory. We're gonna post it in a bit. Promise, dyan sa comments. And then we have one more question. Hello, doctors. Good afternoon. This is a beautiful question. And I feel like even the non-doctors in the panel can answer this as well. How can I be a vessel and help people who are suffering from mental illness, such as anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts? The quads, do you want to start?
Even just one thing too, that's already a good start. Again, allowing space or allowing conversations, allowing use of words that help conversations, okay? Permitting words that we can use to explore our feelings is already a form of health provision. So how can I be a vessel? The best ways we are able to help, and I personally have experienced help, is when friends, loved ones, family, patients, mentors are able to help me and contain the unpleasant feelings. Okay, they don't solve it always, okay, but I feel like I can come to them, okay, and they can kakayanin nila ako. Yun. Whatever I have, the craziness or the feelings, and I come to them for help, okay, and then I feel like kakayanin niya ako. Yun. So without breaking.
Just want to share lang din, sa aming Facebook page na mental page, since we have a parang chatbot, we noticed na most of the visitors there either need help or want to help. So parang it's a realization na maybe part of wanting to help other people is their journey towards healing. So parang there's a drive for people needing help to also want other people because they're in the best position to understand that kind of problem kasi napagdaanan nila. So siguro in how you can help other people, just be honest with what you're going through, and parang inspire them kung ano yung nakatulong sa'yo. May or may not be also helpful to them, but it's good na you share there to break lang the parang stigma na they're not it's not okay to talk about it. Parang it's okay to talk about it. And ito yung ginawa ko, ito yung nakatulong sa akin. Maybe you can also explore other means and ways na pwedeng makatulong sa'yo.
Thank you. This one is from Renato Padilla. What about those who feel think that their future looks bleak, especially the single moms? Any insights? Okay, Senator. I think you're muted. Yeah.
I'm a solo mom. So yeah, and I remember a friend told me once that you can also be a dad to your children, but you can never be a man. So there are siguro comforts that can come from mothers or women. There are comforts that can come from fathers or men to children, and trying to make your family well-rounded, or to have different sources of mentoring and or parenting for your children is all that more limited when it's the time of pandemic and quarantine. And lalo na pag dumadapo sa atin yung pakiramdam na saan ba ito papunta, no? What about my work, my educational prospects? I guess it's also related to the earlier question that how we just need to accompany each other. And even when we're observing the health precautions that ask so much from us. Malaking sakripisyo to, di ba? Yung hindi tayo pwedeng magkita, hindi tayo pwedeng magsama-sama physically, magyakapan. I think one thing that comforts us and could help each other lighten the darkness that we seem to see in the future is to answer the question, what is all of this for? What is all of this sacrifice for? It's to keep each other safe, physically healthy from the virus, and then going back to the hope that Doc Gia mentioned, to believe, to know na lilipas din ito. We will eventually come up with a vaccine. There will eventually be a cure for COVID-19. Pero kailangan magsuportahan tayo until that time. There's no other species who can accompany each other the way we human beings can. So we just have to go the extra mile for each other right now.
Thank you. That's a really hopeful note to end on. Thank you so much, Senator. And now we're gonna flash the hotline numbers again. This is how you can reach out to Hopeline. The National Center for Mental Health is also offering its services, and then the UP Diliman Psych Serve. We're gonna flash it now so you can take note of it. Okay. Thank you so much again to our viewers for the really interesting questions, and to our panel for their insightful answers. Ramdam ko hanggang puso yung mga answers eh. So yeah, I'm really touched by everything that's been said today. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this inclusive discussion. We're gonna close this event with remarks from all of our, well, not all of our speakers, because Doc Gia has had to leave. She has another appointment. But yeah, closing remarks. Let's start with Senator Risa.
Maraming salamat sa inyo, Pam, sa lahat ng mga organizers nitong conversation natin, and to all my co-panelists. I'd like to tell Roy, I heard your point about support for artists. So gusto naming balikan yung aming relief at saka stimulus package bills na very articulate naman yung mga artists, lalo na young artists and cultural workers and media practitioners. And I hope we can work together on that. And Kiana, maraming salamat for what you said. It touched me so much yung sinabi mong one of your lessons about how to take care of mental health is just to allow our loved ones to love us. Tingin ko, Ms. Pam, itong conversation about mental health also has to be generational. So, sana sa mga parents na kasama dito sa conversation and sa mga kids na kasama dito, for us parents, we never forget how much we love our kids. Mula nung baby sila, di ba, na pinanonood natin habang natutulog to make sure humihinga pa rin sila. So for the kids, always know how much we parents love you. At the same time, for my fellow parents, for us to take to heart yung pagrespeto sa privacy ng mga anak natin. So we observe, we're always present, we always love. At the same time, we respect the privacy. And kids, your parents, we're always here. Sa ayaw niyo at sa gusto, all our lives will be here. And mahal na mahal namin kayo. Maraming salamat, Miss Pam, at mabuhay lahat. Ingat and
Thank you.
stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Senator. Next, we have the quads.
I'd like to take this chance to thank each and everyone for being of support to somebody in need. Okay, because mental health, in so many ways, is our contribution to nation building. In your unique ways of sharing your suffering, in your unique ways of sharing hope, or unique ways of sharing your vulnerabilities and coping. That is all our unique ways of contributing to the new normal. Okay, so thank you very much, and just keep talking about it.
Thank you, the quads. Next, we have Kiana. Kiana, I really love what you said about letting your loved ones love you. It's so important. It's such an important lesson that we sometimes forget, you know. Kiana, are you there? Oh, you're on mute. I'm so sorry.
That's something that I've been reminding myself for the past few years. I think, just this whole ordeal with the pandemic and everything, it's just also reminded me of the importance of human connection. So I like what Dr. Quadro said earlier about, whether it's a virtual chat room or not, the communication is still real. So that's something that I will be keeping in mind. On top of that, I've really been able to appreciate reflecting on my own mental state, focusing on the things that I can control, meditating and just kind of taking what I can, letting go of all that I can't, if that makes sense. It does help to accept. It helps when you accept that no matter how many sessions, therapy sessions you go to, no matter how much advice you're given, the bad days will come. It's just a matter of powering through them and building yourself a support system that will carry the weight with you.
Thank
That's
you.
it. I hope that everyone is doing safe and staying safe throughout this crazy time.
Thank you. Roy,
Okay.
our final remarks.
Okay, thank you so much, Pam. I just want to share some realizations from this pandemic being in the field of public health. This pandemic somehow exposed a problem that has long been existing in our country, not only in our country, but actually globally. Now, we can see more clearly now that there are gaps in terms of mental health in the Philippines, like depression, isolation, cases of anxiety because of the uncertainty. But not everyone has access to quality mental health care services, especially today, since that isolated tayo and hindi tayo makalabas. Not everyone has access then to important information. Not everyone has access to this kinds of services. So not everyone's mental health is actually protected. So we need to take a stand and emphasize the importance of mental health today. We need to urge the government, our leaders, the businesses, our schools that it's time to invest in mental health. Now more than ever, mental health is important and should be a priority. Investing on mental health can change people's lives, save people's lives. And for everyone watching, I just want to emphasize that self-care is not selfish. What you're feeling is valid, and know that there's always help.
I love that. Thank you. So you all of you are leaving me with some really important words. Self-care is not selfish. That's really important. Everybody needs to remember that. I love that we've emphasized how people are not alone in their feelings right now. Like everybody's really struggling with this because nobody knows how to deal with this. Nobody's ever dealt with this before. Reach out, community is important. We must take care of ourselves and each other. And I love what Senator said about being compassionate to each other, but also to ourselves. Because sometimes you forget that. Parang we're always reminded you have to be compassionate when it comes to dealing with other people, but you also have to be kind to yourself. Your mental health matters. I love Roy what you said, zero the stigma, zero the cases. I think that should all be our battle cry. You are loved. Let your loved ones love you. We must have a willingness to be uncomfortable together. And the quads, I think that's something we're all dealing with now. We're all being uncomfortable together as a country, as a world. And the task is to temper and to regulate and to protect ourselves. Thank you so much. This has been such an insightful discussion. Thank you once again to our panelists for joining us today. And thank you to all the people who watched. Thank you for being part of INQlusive, the Inquirer webinar series produced by the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Inquirer.net, Inquirer Super, and Scout, and co-presented by Globe. Again, we encourage you, join the Hope Bank community. It's right here on Facebook. Just look for Hope Bank and start sharing inspirational and messages of hope for everyone who needs it. Use the hashtag Start a New Day. To our viewers, thank you for joining us. This is not the end. We'll be bringing you more conversations about mental health. As you can see, it's a really important conversation to have. We focused on millennials and Gen Z for the most part today, but there will be other episodes in this webinar which will be focusing on other facets of this important discussion. Again, stay tuned for the next episodes of Globe and Inquirer Start a New Day webinar series. Once again, this is Pam Pastor from the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of Start a New Day. Let's talk about mental health insights for millennials and Gen Z. Stay safe, and here's a final word from Globe.
Thank you.
Ate?
Napatawa mo ko?